Welcome to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, a homeschool mom, entrepreneur, and educator with over 20 years of experience in the areas of elementary and special education. It's my mission to help you create lifelong learners and embrace a holistic approach to education at home. I'll be sharing practical strategies, inspiration, and resources to support your family. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a business owner, or balancing work and homeschool, you're in the right place to connect with a community that values education just as much as you do. Join us each week as we ditch the stress, embrace the joy of learning, and set your family up for a lifetime of success. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, your home education expert. And today, as we are wrapping up our month about reading with confidence and instilling this independence into our children, the importance of reading, we are ending the month with a very special interview, and I'm so excited to introduce Katie to you. She is a children's author, a homeschool mom of three, and a former teacher like myself. So even before before we started recording, we were chatting about all the things about being in the classroom and now shifting to that homeschool role. And I mean, I could tell we can already talk for hours, but we will not. We will keep it short for you guys. But I am very excited to introduce Katie to you. Katie, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
My name is Katie Vieira. I am a homeschool mom of three, and I left the classroom when my oldest was born. I taught fourth grade primarily before becoming the literacy trainer for the district, and I have just loved bringing that home to my daughter. And it's really fun having her be at that age now where I can really dive into all of that literacy with her. So I am so excited to be here with you to end this month that's all about literacy as well.
Yes. So and it's huge. We've been talking about this on the show this week of like how important reading with our kids is, how important that read aloud is, all of the skills that come about from just reading, something so simple that we can do at any point throughout the day. And all the skills we've talked about, vocabulary, which I was checking your book out, and your book is rich in vocabulary, right? And incorporating the life skills. It's incorporating getting outdoors, getting off of the screens. Like, guys, this is my jam for sure. I'm very excited to hear more about your book and what inspired you to write it?
Yes. So my book, Into the Field Tennessee Summer, was inspired by life with my girls. So when I started homeschooling, I was trying to push them and get them outside as often as possible. And I was really surprised that there was a little bit of a power struggle between me and my girls when it was like, all right, let's go outside and play. And they were like, no, I don't want to. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not right. So the more I dove into that and explored that, I started to see not only signs of screen addiction, but the dangers of where that screen addiction can go. So really balancing that with the 1,000 hours outdoors and really of letting that become the focus of our homeschooling the first couple of years was going out on hikes, making friends out on adventures, taking risks. And throughout all of that, we uncovered a lot of the adventures that the girls take in the book. So they're using a lot of the life skills that they experience with their family, with their hiking groups and their homeschool lives. And they're having to use those skills on their own and really apply those skills in real world situations in order to find their way home and find their way out of the hiking video game that they find themselves stuck inside of. So kind of emulating that screen addiction when they become stuck in the game, just like kids nowadays become stuck in the screens and they can't disengage from them.
Oh, that's such a good analogy. I love that so much. And it is so true. We are seeing that more and more, and we're seeing so much education on the screens, which is not good for our kids.
No. And I mean, because it's so passive. And it's funny because every once in a while I would put videos like that on for them where it's supposed to like get them up and dancing or like shouting out at the screen to answer. And my kids were just so passively staring at the screen. And I was like, no, you're supposed, like, let's dance with them. And they're like, no, Mom, sit down.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't working.
No, it can be very overstimulating. I've seen that a lot. We were at a party and they had one of those on and I was like, this is a lot. Like it's supposed to be a brain break, but it is a lot. Yeah. And I was like, this is not good for them.
Right. All those flashing lights and like constant transitions within the videos. I mean, we see it in social media. We're constantly scrolling because every 3 to 7 seconds, we're getting new information into our brains. And that dopamine is triggered constantly. And that's what's happening with these kids. They're being desensitized to the dopamine that they're constantly flooded with, and having to balance that, turning that off and then going to a book. It's like their brains can't even do that.
And I know that I've seen this. I've shared this on my show before, but I saw this in my own kids when it'd be like a Saturday morning, right? I want to sleep in, they're up, and I'm like, go ahead, turn a show on. That's fine. Watch an educational show or whatever, right? And then that morning, as we go to start our day, we're making breakfast, we're doing the dishwasher, our morning chores. Their resistance to do our normal routine was like, whoa, you need to back it up, like take a break. And I was like, how did you start your day? Yeah. You watched a show. And I was like, and that messed up your brain.
It's all scrambled.
I was like, yeah. And I was like, we're not doing that anymore. Like that is not worth it. So screen time in our house is very limited. It's something that, they have to ask for a show. They don't get to just get their tablets. They don't get to just turn the TV on whenever they want, and that was something that was very intentional because I already saw that at such a young age.
Yeah. Well, and it was a really slippery slope for us as well because we started out with the iPads. They were gifted iPads. And, in my mind, I was like, well, I'm just going to monitor how long they go on it. I'm going to monitor what they do on it. I'm going to make sure it's all, really educational and, all the things. But it, like you said, it does not make any of us, immune to the side effects of being on those screens. And it would be the tantrums to turn them off. And the same with movies. I mean, that deferred imitation. They would see something in a movie, whether it was, just a split second. And then, a day, a week, a month later, they would be imitating those things that they saw. And you're like, where did you even see that? Yes. Oh, a quick, moment on that TV show or that movie. So we slowly started to decrease those things. We took away the iPads and now we'll just put on like a movie on long road trips. And then we cut movies during the week. And now we just have Friday movie night where we vote on a movie and we make it really special. And if we do have like random TV time during the week, it's family time where we all sit down together and we watch like a documentary that we've been enjoying or something that's real life. I try not to put on cartoons as often as or as little as possible because I want them to see, Bear Grylls running wild and like people really struggling. And I want them to see like the veterinary show where they're having to like solve problems. So I try to focus it a little bit more on those real life situations. So they're seeing, okay, how are people reacting to these things in real life? And hopefully it's not, robots punching each other so that
right.
they're not punching each other later on.
Exactly. Because they're imitating what they're seeing and what they're listening to and what they're hearing. And that's why it's so important to, kind of keep that in mind. And again, doesn't mean that we're perfect over here. We're going to watch shows and movies on road trips as well, right? We travel to Pittsburgh from Georgia. That's a 12-hour drive, So sometimes you have to do it. And like sometimes they do need that break, that mental break. But you as the parent have to recognize like when is too much. And they start to recognize it too. My kids will start to recognize like, I've been on this way too long. And I'm like, yeah, you have, And then we know it for ourselves even. I know when I scroll or I'm sitting at my computer too long, I'm like, oh, I need to give my eyes a break.
Right. My eyes actually hurt.
Yes, exactly. All right. So let's dive in more into your book. You've created lessons with it. I mean, as a literacy coach, that's what you did, right? You started to coach some of the teachers. So tell us more about that role and then how it led into writing a book.
So as the literacy trainer for the district that I worked in, I would train the literacy coaches as well as the teachers on different strategies that were, proven at the time, or different things that they could be utilizing, curriculums that they would be doing. So I learned a lot of different things in terms of how to engage students. So when I transitioned to homeschool, I tried those things, and most of the time they didn't do anything. It's one of those things where what works in the classroom is not going to work at home. And that was a really big transition for me, because I would come in all expecting okay, the bell rang, kids. But obviously we didn't do that. But they were like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'd be like, all right, well, what, what do I do now? What would I do in the classroom? Yeah, you're supposed to come now. No, but a lot of times in homeschooling, you kind of have to sneak it in. You have to make it really engaging for them in a way that they don't think they're being, taught to, which I guess is the same in the classroom. Mm-hmm. But I started this story with the fact that they go into this hiking video game, and I wanted them to go to different places across the United States. So each book has a different setting. So this one is Tennessee, is the first one. The second book is going to be Colorado campground. So they're going to go and they're going to visit Colorado through the video game, and they're going to have to kind of go through a similar situation. But essentially what's going to happen is the characters are going to be visiting different biomes or different land types across the United States. So within that, the kids are going to be learning about those different places, the different environments, the wildlife that's there.
Love that.
But also I wanted to tie in a lot of survival skills, because life skills is one of those things that kids are not always getting as often. It's not always the stress. So those survival skills of making a fire, making a shelter. What do you do if you see a bear? Are you allowed to drink creek water? All those different things that these characters are having to navigate, and the kids are going to be learning. So I wanted everything that was in there to be something that I would be comfortable with my kids reading and going, oh yeah, let's try that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because of that deferred imitation, right? Yes. And one of the key things that was really, really powerful for me, a lot of the books that my kids are reading, a lot of times you'll hear the character saying, well, we can't tell our parents, right? Yeah. We can't let mom know. And they would keep these secrets. And I'm like, that is not the morals and values that I want my kids hearing and that I want to be translating to my readers.
Exactly.
So as soon as the kids come home and they do, spoiler alert, as soon as the kids make it home, they turn to each other and they say, we have to go tell mom. And they kind of have this discussion around, well, mom's not going to believe us. And then they talk through it and say, well, she's going to know what to do. Right. So
I love that.
They know they can trust her, and they run up to her, and she's, making sourdough, dancing to NSYNC in the kitchen. And she's like, what are you guys talking about? But she does. She's like, well, let's call your friend. Let's see what's going on. And she kind of helps them problem solve. So she's not dismissing them. Mm-hmm. She's like, all right, well, this sounds a little, kooky, but let's work through it together.
I love this. I mean, I definitely am going to add this to my curriculum, because I'm a huge component of teaching from a book. So I know that you talked about Magic Tree House at one point, right? And I use those all the time, because I was like, there's so many great components in a chapter book, right? The read aloud component, your kids reading to you, the vocabulary, the grammar, the history or the science of it. In your case, the life skills of it,
Right. But there is also a lot of the science and social studies embedded. So what I did with my teacher brain is I went through each chapter and I pulled out not only the discussion topics, but I created some light comprehension questions that if you wanted to go that route and you could really dive into those stories of, what are the characters feeling, what might happen next, and using a lot of those connections and predictions and summarizing. But I also included science experiments based on some of the things that the kids are doing. Because at one point they're like following the sun as it arcs across the sky. So, in that chapter, when they really focus in on that, they're creating a sundial so that they can see how that sun moves.
Right.
So I created a lot of those kind of take and go activities that you can use to pair along with this book, because I'm the same way. I love a good book that I can really like dissect and create all sorts of lessons from. So I wanted that to be something that parents could access here as well.
That is awesome. I mean, I am just so excited about this. I'm so excited to start this, and I'll probably do it in the summer because we travel. Right. And it's the perfect time to say, hey, go do this with, they call my dad G Dad,
Yeah.
and go do this with G Dad in the woods. Go make your fire. Cause he teaches them all of that stuff, making the fire and, just out in the woods and all that kind of stuff, So this would be such a great book to read with them and then say, go make a sundial with G Dad,
Right.
and go build your fire and, talk about, because they talk about the wildlife and, So what made you choose Tennessee for the first book?
I don't really have a great answer for that. I'm going to be really lame with it. So it's a very long story that I can, get into, but we were living in Florida, and you see in the story, the girls moved from Florida to Kansas City. And that was exactly what was happening with us. We had left Florida and we were living in Kansas City. So it was starting to mirror my life very closely. The two girls are inspired by my own daughters, and they would even give their input on, what they would say and what they would wear and how they would act. And so they had a lot of fun with that. But I wanted to kind of expand that bubble, because I didn't want it to be just exactly our life, right? So we had traveled to Tennessee often. We had visited there and we loved it there. And looking at the different biomes and where I wanted to start, that it just kind of made the most sense. So I picked a nature center that we had visited and kind of used that as their point where they find some help in the forest with that nature center. And I mean, that's my inspiration for Tennessee.
I love it. I was waiting for we live there or we visit there, we have family, nothing like that.
No. Well, the next one, I'll have a better answer with Colorado Campground, because now we're living in Colorado.
Right. Oh, that is so great. So then you have at least another book, right? How many books are you projecting to have in this series?
So it's so funny because my daughter gets really fired up. She has seen me doing this process, and it has just lit this spark in her where she's creating these series and she's writing these things. So we were chatting one day and she was like, Mom, in the next book, you're going to, we should do this. And she's starting to plan this all out, and she's projecting it. She's like, in the 5th book, we can do this. And then in the 7th book, they do this. And she's like, got this all mapped out in her head.
Wow.
So,
and it's easy for them because my daughter's the same way. She's writing her own books, and I'm like, go for it, girl. She's got all these business ideas, all these things. Our brain is pretty full, so it's like, let's think of the next thing and then the next thing. But their brain, they're able just to dream big because it's not cluttered with all the extra stuff, especially being homeschooled, right? Yeah. They have that space. They have that time to be able to say, I could do all this stuff, and they're watching us and saying like, look at Mom do that. Like, we could do this. And it's so inspiring to see that,
It really is.
That is so awesome.
Yeah. So I know that with the storyline, I'm going to have to figure out and plan it accordingly so that, this story about screen addiction doesn't become kids playing on video games all the time, right? Because that essentially is how it starts, is them playing this new hiking video game and then, kind of getting trapped inside to help their friend. So we're gonna weave it in, and we've got some really clever ideas to balance it appropriately, because it's important for us to remember too that, like we talked about before, it is balance, right? We can't just completely write off technology because it's 2026. So finding that balance. But I don't necessarily know that I'm going to hit all 50 states,
That would be cool, though.
I would say I've got at least 10 in my brain that'll find their way out.
That would be amazing. Well, I cannot wait to get my hands on it and to start that with my kids. But is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners about, the activities that you have in there, or anything else that you might want to kind of leave them with? And then we want to find out where we can get all of this, right? Where they can get connected with you.
Yeah, so every Friday on my Instagram page, I'm releasing a new chapter of extension activities. So I just did chapter 4, so you can already find chapters 1 through 4 in the field guide highlights on my Instagram page. But if you check back in, those will be released each Friday. So I think that's definitely important to know if you are interested in those extension activities.
Yes, definitely. I'll definitely be checking in for sure, because that is what it's all about. It's about how can you take this one piece? How can we make homeschool as easy as possible, right? Mm-hmm. By taking this book, you can do multiple activities, and you are doing it. Do you have writing extensions in there as well?
Yeah. Yep, there's some writing prompts. There's some art prompts. At one point, they're drawing a portrait of one of the characters based on the description that is given of that character. So they're having to listen to those keywords and characteristics that describe George, and then write their own portrait of him. And in one of the writing examples, the girls are going around and the younger sister is talking to the trees, and she starts naming them and like, "Oh, you've really been through a lot. Hang in there." And the tips off the older sister, like, "Wait a minute, you've seen these trees before? What, are we going around in circles? Like, what's happening here?" And not only was that moment inspired by an actual moment that happened to us on a hike when my daughter became best friends with all the trees, and those names found their way into the book, but the writing prompt challenges readers to create a story around those trees and from the perspective of those trees.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so it's really kind of testing that curiosity and creativity in lots of different ways.
Which is so good. So important for them, for sure. Well, I love that. So we definitely are going to grab it. So is your book on Amazon?
It is on Amazon. It's really available anywhere books are sold online. I'm not in stores yet. But you can find it on Amazon. The only caveat is you have to type in Into the Field and at least start typing Tennessee Summer. Into the Field is just a, popular name. And because I'm an indie author, I'm kind of sunk down there. But if you do find yourself enjoying it, go ahead and leave a review, and it'll, inspire other readers to find it as well.
Yes, definitely. And all of these links will be in the show notes below. So we'll have the link to the book. And then we'll have the link for your Instagram. And then is there anywhere else that you would want them to, find you, or anything else you want to share and leave our readers with? Or our listeners, not our readers. Yeah. They will be our readers.
They are readers too.
Yes.
If you are not on social media, my website also has all of those extension activities, my book tour if you're local to Colorado. And it's just my name, KatieVieira.com. And you'll be able to find the link to buy the book, as well as all of those other things that we talked about.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to continue to watch your journey and probably have you back as you keep releasing new books each time. So I would love that. And any final words for our listeners before we head out?
I don't think so. Just I hope that this book inspires you and your kiddos to get outside and enjoy all of the things that nature provides for us. It's just a glorious, glorious day.
Yes,
go enjoy it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Katie, so much for being here. I really appreciate you joining us this week as we wrap up our literacy month, really talking about reading. And as we now get into more of the spring months, getting outside, we're going to be talking about ways to incorporate, the outdoors and all of those things in upcoming episodes. But what I would love to know is are your kids addicted to the screens? I would love to know this. If this is something that you see for your children, let us know. Head over to the Home Education with Ease Facebook group and let us know, is that something that you are struggling with or your children are struggling with? And how can we do that? And hopefully this book will bridge that gap for your family to say, you know what, we are going to put the screens down, we're going to pick up a book, and we are going to go on an adventure within the book and then when you go outside. So that is the hope here, because really it is so important to have these experiences with our kids. So join that Home Education with Ease Facebook group, and we will see you next week. Thanks so much, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling empowered and ready to take the next steps on your home education journey. Your support means the world to me. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. For even more resources, be sure to join the free Facebook group, Home Education with Ease, and visit eduplaylearning.com to explore our programs and subscription kits. You can find the links and any other links mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. Remember, you're not alone. This community is here to support you every step of the way.